Before anything else, pause for just a moment. Not long, just a breath. And if stories like this matter to you, if you believe that some truths are whispered instead of shouted, if you've ever loved someone deeply but felt something slowly slipping away without knowing how to stop it, then subscribe to this channel. Not for numbers, not for trends, but because this is where stories are told honestly, quietly, without masks. These are the kinds of stories people don't tell at dinner tables. The ones we carry alone. The ones that change us. And if you've ever stayed silent when your heart was asking questions, listen carefully. Because this story begins with silence that I didn't stay quiet because I felt nothing. I stayed quiet because I felt everything. The tension, the hesitation, the unease that settled into my chest and refused to leave. But I told myself silence was patience, that it was maturity, that it meant I was being understanding. I convinced myself that strong people don't accuse, that trusting people don't interrogate, that loving someone means giving them space when they seem distant. I believed silence was kindness. What I didn't understand back then, what I couldn't see yet, was that silence is never empty. Silence is a decision. And sometimes silence isn't love at all. Sometimes silence is permission. At first, there was nothing dramatic. No screaming matches. No slammed doors. No suspicious notifications lighting up the room. There was no single moment I could point to and say, that's when it started. Instead, it arrived quietly, like a shift in the air. Something subtle enough to doubt, but heavy enough to feel. The distance didn't announce itself. It didn't rush in. It didn't demand attention. It crept. Conversations that used to stretch late into the night began ending early. Those long talks where time disappeared, where laughter came easily, where silence felt comfortable instead of tense. They started fading. Replies became shorter, more functional, less curious. The warmth went first, then the laughter, then the eye contact. They still listened when I spoke, but it wasn't the kind of listening that says, I'm here. It was polite listening, courtesy listening, the kind that waits patiently for its turn to leave. And every night, I asked myself the same question. Am I imagining this? From the outside, everything looked normal. They still came home. Still said I love you. Still sat across from me at meals. Still talked about plans. Still followed the routines we had built together. Anyone watching us would have said we were fine, stable, functional, ordinary. But inside the relationship, something had started to fracture. Not shatter. Not explode. Just crack. And cracks don't make noise at first. Slowly the phone stopped being just a phone. It became a wall. Notifications were silenced. Screens tilted away. Passwords suddenly mattered. Smiles appeared suddenly, then vanished just as fast. Whenever I entered the room, I noticed everything. And I said nothing. Because confronting the truth felt more dangerous than living with doubt. So I told myself stories. Stories to survive the fear. Everyone goes through phases. Stress makes people distant. Trust means not accusing without proof. I repeated those thoughts until they sounded like facts. Even when they started leaving the room to take calls. Even when work ran late more often than it ever had before. Even when they seemed more alive everywhere else. And exhausted only with me. They talked about their day with energy, but spoke to me like someone running out of breath. Still, silence felt safer. Because asking questions felt like risk. And staying quiet felt like control. What I didn't know yet was that silence doesn't stop betrayal. Silence gives it space to grow. The moment I knew didn't come with chaos. There were no raised voices. No tears spilling onto the floor. No dramatic confrontation. Just a small accident. A tablet left unlocked on the couch. A message preview lighting up the screen. One sentence. I wish I was with you right now. That was it. One line. And everything folded inward. I didn't touch the screen right away. My hands were shaking too badly. A part of me still hoped there was an explanation that wouldn't destroy everything. But when I finally opened the messages, I understood instantly. This wasn't physical. Not yet. But it was emotional. And emotional betrayal cuts deeper. because it takes what was meant to be yours. They shared their days, their frustrations, their dreams. They gave someone else the parts of themselves that once belonged to me. They talked about how complicated things felt, how misunderstood they were, how easy it was to talk to the other person. I wasn't being cheated on in secret. I was being replaced slowly, quietly, deliberately. When they came home that night, I watched carefully. I didn't confront them. I needed to see who they were when they believed I knew nothing. They kissed my cheek, asked about my day, said they were tired. And in that moment, something inside me broke, because lying had become effortless. Later, I asked a simple question. Is there anything you want to tell me? They paused, just for a second, then said no. Why? That was the moment my silence truly ended. Not with shouting, not with anger, but with clarity. I showed them the messages. They didn't deny it. They said what people always say when they don't want to admit what they've already chosen. It didn't mean anything. It just happened. It wasn't planned. So I asked the question that had been living in my chest for weeks. If I hadn't seen this, would you have told me? They couldn't answer. And that silence told me everything. They said they were confused, that they felt distant, that the other person made them feel understood. They promised nothing physical had happened. But I understood something then. Betrayal doesn't begin with touch. It begins with permission. Permission to confide. Permission to hide. Permission to emotionally choose someone else while keeping you as comfort. They promised to end it, to fix things, to try. And I wanted to believe them. So I stayed quiet again. Not because I didn't know the truth, but because I was afraid of what speaking it fully would cost me. Weeks passed. They were kinder, more attentive, almost careful. But something fundamental was gone. Trust doesn't return just because someone apologizes. And secrets don't disappear quietly. One evening we were sitting together. A message arrived. They didn't see it. I did. I can't do this anymore. You said you'd choose me. That was the moment everything finally collapsed. No excuses left. No denial. No pretending. They admitted it never really ended. That they didn't know how to stop. That they were afraid of losing both of us. But they already had. We didn't scream. We didn't fight. We didn't throw things. We just sat there. Two people finally facing what silence had allowed.